Girl.
Is that a rhetorical question?
No. How do you find the time? Or were you just like, thank you, universe. That's my bag. Thank you. Send me that. I would be like, what the did I just survive?
Well, it's financial access.
You're dropping so many gems.
Can you stop? Hello?
Yeah.
And it's like, and...
Yeah. All right. Hello, world. Welcome to another episode of It's All Necessary with me, Tifani Sage. And I just want to set the intention and put the reminder again that this is a space where we're reminded every life experience, whether big or small, every experience we get a taste of, it's only to prepare and propel our growth. And so it's all necessary. So without further ado, I would love to introduce my amazing, wonderful guest, Sydney Rye.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Tifani, for this. This is going to be really, really great. And I feel honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So guys, everyone, Sydney is a Himalayan yogi, poet, educator, activist, entrepreneur, and investor. Girl, how do you find the time?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, it's just, wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really loaded question, but in a nutshell, I've just created a life for myself where I freed up my time to be able to educate, learn, experience, and grow. I think that that's been essential and pivotal for my life, to be able to allocate the time and find the time and work smarter than harder. I find that often in our society, we work harder. That means we put in more hours, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our paychecks are higher.
That part,
so
girl.
So yeah, that's kind of been how I've done it in a nutshell. It's just working smarter. And I'm not sure if you know about human design, but as someone that loves human design and has studied and has done readings on human design as well, I find I'm a projector. And so projectors don't really have their own energy sources. They don't really have their own generator energy sources. And I found that when I tried to operate as a generator, which is, generators exist on the planet, 80% of people are generators on this planet. So that means that they have their own energies to propel themselves forward. They tend to have the need for a lot of sleep. They can operate with 6 hours, 5 hours of sleep. And I'm the type of person that I need 8 to 10 hours of sleep sometimes. And I thought, well, I think something's wrong with me, or, why do I feel constantly tired and depleted and drained? It's because I was in a city, like a city of generators in New York City, trying to operate like everybody else. And that wasn't my path. My path was to figure out how I can sort of be equal to a generator. So maximizing my potentiality, my work, but without working hard and sacrificing the little energy that I have as a projector, which means we don't really have our own energy sources. We actually have to be in an environment to take on energy, to feel motivated or to feel energized. So yeah.
Wow. So a question, I know I had a certain structure, but it's like we're already flowing. So might as well just go where, the conversation's being led. But when you realized or found out that you were a projector, did it ever make you feel like you're not the starter? Because I feel there's a lot of people who take pride in, I'm the leader per se. And, without me, nothing starts.
I think any kind of energy I think anybody can be a leader, and I think it doesn't matter whether you're a generator or a projector. Projectors typically are visionaries. Uh, we see where we're going collectively, because just because we don't have our own operating generator motor that propels us forward like a, like a energizing bunny that keeps going and going and going, what we do have is the capacity to pull back and see things from a bird's eye perspective, and see how we're falling into traps, or falling into victimhood, or falling into work hard and therefore you'll be rewarded, versus work smart and you'll
Right.
be a lot more rewarded, right? And so, like,
Yeah.
my path has been deterred to take other directions for this reason, to be like, hey, we're going the wrong way,
Mm,
society. We're
wow.
depleting our energy. We don't
Yeah.
have time for our families. We don't have time for the things that we love. We don't have time to learn. We don't have time to work on our spirituality. We don't have time to break generational curses, because guess what? 80 hours of your week is working,
Right. Right.
or sometimes
I want to
45,
jump
depending on
into
what industry.
into
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
right. Um, I want to jump into when you said earlier that you created the life that you live now, and what did that look like that day or that moment where it's like, you know what, I need to pause everything that I'm doing and really, I guess, draw out the life that I want. Like, was it a quick, like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do? Or it's like, you know what, I feel like something's off, but I know I do need to start kind of, chipping away at the life that I do want.
Being born and raised in New York City, um, before Carrie Bradshaw and Sex and the City came through and put it on the map in that way, um, was a very nitty gritty kind of society where, there was a lot more of working class and people getting their hands dirty and experiencing. And there was not a lot of, the digital world wasn't really like on the map. Social media wasn't even a thing. And so I found myself doing a lot of odd jobs, a lot of jobs with my hands, or I was a waitress or a bartender, or, I was an assistant to a designer. Um, I was a network marketer. So I was a brand marketing specialist. So I would brand for all these companies. And it was a lot of just being in front of people and selling and being tactical and just, really in the environment. And with that experience, I definitely experienced so much injustice, you know. Um, Being a woman at that time, this is before Me Too movement as well. Um, there's been a lot of injustice with women and women of color, and so working these jobs, you didn't really have a say, or you didn't really have a voice, or you couldn't really have an opinion. And then the layer of being an attractive female, there was a lot of jealousy, and there was a
That
lot
part.
of
Speak on it,
competition.
Sydney.
There was a
Mhm.
lot of competition, and like, maybe if typically men own a lot of businesses. We're still living in a patriarchal society, right? So then the patriarchal
Mhm.
society is full on. We're not debunking or decolonizing our minds just yet. This is fairly new. These topics of, generational trauma is very new. I'd say in the last 8, 7 years, we're really talking about it. Um, so I grew up before, I'm growing up before this in my 20s, and I'm just like, what kind of world are we living in where we're sort of bashing or bringing down, diminishing the feminine in such a way where they feel powerless. And women are doing that to each other. And a lot of the times men own a lot of these businesses that I was working in, whether that was being the restaurant bar owner, or the design company, or the brand, the product that I was branding for, or liquor companies, because I did branding for liquor companies. And so it was very much a top down approach. And quite honestly, when the men own the business, the men usually have wives, and the wives, when they would come to work with their partners or come through, there was always like, well, I don't like her. There's something about her I don't
Mm,
like.
mm-hmm.
And it wasn't necessarily something that I was doing, but my attractiveness was an offense.
Yeah. And I think
And
that was
that
them
was this.
projecting
Go
just,
ahead.
who knows what was going on in their household. Or I think being, and I can personally speak from it, like being attractive is one thing, but then when you have the confidence and you have a good sense of knowing self, it's like, oh, no, 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 this seems like the total package. And I don't like that. And my man or my woman may be attracted to you, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. And then it's just like, what did I do? I'm just here living, trying to survive like everybody else.
Exactly. And I even experienced that when I worked at the New York Stock Exchange, when my boss was this woman. Um, and her boss really liked my work. And she gave me a lot of work that I wasn't equipped to do so that I can fail. And then she can show that that I wasn't a really good employee because I couldn't meet the quota or couldn't finish the work, or I couldn't do it. And so I was met with so much resistance. And I was just trying to pay my bills, like you mentioned. I was just trying to pay my bills, figure it out, support my family. I'm the first one in my family to break so many generational trauma, so many generational curses, so many glass ceilings, so many things um, against me. I'm the first one to ever go for college in my family, and so that was what propelled me to seek my own liberation, because I realized fairly quickly that I kept relinquishing my own power, my sense of safety to someone else, especially in the workplace, because then I had to be a good girl, or I had to take the abuse, or I had to take any snarky comments, or even I've been sexually harassed as well, and so there was so much happening at that time that was just, I need to figure it out, and I need to figure it out quick, because the scarcity was it was running so deep in my family that I could no longer bear it for my own life. And as much as I kept propelling forward and taking a few steps forward, I was met with so much resistance in the workplace, just trying to have a better life, to climb up this ladder, this economic ladder, this social ladder, and just be better and, evolve. It wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. There wasn't safe spaces, and there wasn't people trying to hold my
Question.
hand and empower me. Yeah. Go
Hmm.
ahead.
When you mentioned time, as far as like you wanted to climb the ladder quickly because of the scarcity that you were being faced with home, did you also feel time wise like you had to move quick because you may have felt behind, or it's just like, I want to get there quick so that, I don't know, I guess what I'm trying to say is like sometimes I feel more so like, what, 3 years ago and before, that it's like I want to get there now because it feels like it's fleeting. But in actuality, it's kind of like divine timing is a very real thing. And as much as one may think like, oh, I'm running out of time, I think I need to do this fast, and just being in a rush, it's like you're going to reach there when it's time for you to reach there.
I think that our level of awareness has increased.
Mm,
We weren't thinking like this, you know 15 years ago. I don't think that there weren't safe spaces to even be vulnerable in the way that we are showing up now. I don't think that crossed my mind. And plus, that's a very multi-layered question, because one, there's societal obligations and pressures of when you should be succeeding at what age and at what time, and what your life should be looking like at this particular chapter, and when we should be having kids, and that white picket fence and the American dream, that's no longer here for us. As we've seen, we've all of us, most of us have been in debt, in college debt, and then still can't get a job and still can't really succeed financially, right? So, but yeah, it wasn't really like a rush to get to the finish line out of desperation to be somewhere because I need to get it. No, it wasn't that. It was really rooted in generational trauma of the amount of scarcity that I saw growing up within my own community, and the lack of resources, and the desire to really want to help lift other people out of that, and the pressure that I had and the responsibility that I had in my household to accomplish and be able to not only thrive myself, but have other people thrive in my circles. Because when you thrive on your own, it's not really fun. Yeah. You quickly realize it's not fun when you're the only one having a good time and evolving,
It creates
And so,
more havoc, the jealousy, the envy, the what's it called? The something's remorse, survivor's remorse, and or whatever I think it's called. But it's just like, yeah, I definitely feel you on that. It's not fun alone. And also too for your
yeah,
own growth, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's also not fun because then that means you're the one that's responsible for paying everyone's bill. So financially, it's not even something that it's sustainable. Because if you're the only one winning, then if you're the only one winning, then you're kind of responsible for everyone financially, mentally, spiritually, and it's too much of a burden to carry on your own. So when you thrive and you can help spread some wisdom or knowledge or experience so that person can take themselves to another level, because at the end of the day, we can't do the work for other people, So that urge for wanting to propel forward wasn't a superficial reason. It was deeply rooted in generational trauma and wanting to see my people, and the people of color in my community out to something new, a new vision, to their own creativity of what they picture for themselves, a dream, a goal, whatever, what have not. Just something outside of the dire sense of scarcity that I kept seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. Touching on childhood a little bit, did you ever have an inkling as to like, oh, I have aspirations to be that? Or if you were told by anyone, I don't know, a stranger, a friend, saying like, what, Sydney, I think you would be a great blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I remember I found this homework when I was 5, and my mom kind of kept everything that I drew and painted. And I said I wanted to be a cop. And I never quite understood that because I've always been really creative. But there's something to that, because the injustice that I've seen within my community, I can see why as a 5 or 6-year-old I would want to be a cop.
Wow.
You
And
know?
that's so, I feel like you were very woke as a, being as young as you were, saying something's not right about this and I want to fix that.
It's funny because I never quite understood it. You don't know things and you don't understand things when you're going through the motions in different chapters in your life. But now at this point in my life, I actually know why. And because I'm a Himalayan master yogi and I've studied the whole comprehensive yogic approach, which part of it is the Vedantic astrology, I was able to really understand why I was woke. When I first came onto this planet, I came onto this planet with the energy of Jupiter. Jupiter is Ganesha. Jupiter is Ganesha, the protector, but also the planet Jupiter on its own, it's the teacher. It's the woke one. It's the one that's woke and it's going to spread the message. And so being born with that energy and then followed by what ends up happening after Jupiter period, it's followed by Saturn, which is really interesting because it was like until I was 3 years old, I had this Jupiter period, born in Jupiter period until 3 years old, and then all of a sudden shifted to Saturn. And Saturn is a 19-year period. And Saturn, depending on when you experience Saturn in your life, when you experience Saturn early on in your life, you're not equipped with the tools for life or how to deal with trauma, or when something's happening in your life and you're seeing abuse and violence or whatever it is that you're seeing, you don't really have the tools. You're just like, okay, like I'll figure it out, or I'll just stay quiet, or like there's a fight or flight response that happens. Your nervous system gets jolted and you're just in fight or flight response. And or silent, one of those two. And so and then all the karmic things that I had to deal with Saturn, because Saturn could be a high disciplinary teacher, but on a lower level, it could be a lot of karma. And at that age, of course, it's going to be karma because I'm not equipped with the full understanding and the correct intellect to be able to deal with that on a higher level. Although I did have Jupiter kind of guiding me through and having my third eye saying, well, something is wrong and you want to go the other direction. And that's all I can see was something was wrong and I need to go this direction because this direction, how these people are doing it, this is what they're experiencing because this is how they're doing it. And I can't do that. And that's as far as I went with the understanding and the intellect.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Man, this is good. As far as role models, when you were younger, were there any people that stuck out to you, whether people in person or on TV? And what was it about that individual that made you say, like, I like what they got going on?
You know, I honestly, no, I can't really think about
Mm.
a role model because there weren't people representing me. I mean, again,
Mm-hmm.
this is just, it's now cool to be Latina. It's now cool to be a person of color. Now everyone wants a person of color
Wow.
as a friend or as a girlfriend or as a
Mm-hmm.
partner or as a
Mm-hmm.
fiance or as a wife. And even then, sometimes it's tricky because a lot of people haven't decolonized their mind yet, you know?
That part, yeah. I feel
So,
like I've realized, oh, the other day I was in a workout class, which is a whole new thing for me because I prefer like sports, the tennis, the basketball, and whatever. But I was in a workout session and I noticed that there was this white woman next to me. She came to the session late, and so she was struggling trying to catch up to get her dumbbells together and whatever, whatever. And I was like, you know what? Even though I'm here trying to, get in shape, let me just take a second and help her. And so I bent down, put the little clamp on the dumbbell and whatever. And like her response was so shocked, like, oh my God, like not like get away from me, but it was like, oh, you're helping me? Okay. And that kind of stuck with me a little bit. And then after the session, I could tell in her body language she wanted to say, thank you so much for helping me. But I could see it was just like, you know what you did, and I appreciate that. And so it made me realize, or just it just made me remember that we're all growing. No one's perfect, and that was a learning moment for her, and a reminder that I want to make sure I word this right. It was a reminder to her, you know what? Racism, like it is its own thing, but I can't, I guess, be prejudiced against this person who I don't know her from Adams and she just helped me. But then I could see the struggle in her, like, oh, but I was kind of raised to, not let this person of color enter my personal space. So I don't know where I was going with that, but
no,
yeah.
it's highlighting that we're all yeah, we're also healing and decolonizing our minds from patriarchal society, from just, yeah, racism. We're the children
Hmm.
of a previous genocide. We are. If
True.
you're a person of
Yeah.
color and you're in the States, you're part of an ancestry that has been part of a genocide.
Mm, yeah.
And we are the ones
Um,
that are 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 healing that.
yeah. I like that phrase. In school, say middle school, high school, what was your favorite, I guess your favorite, mm, top two subjects in school?
In high school.
Hmm.
In high school, right? I really, really was really good at history and English.
Really? I can so
Yeah.
see the English. History I suck at. But what did you love about history?
I soaked it in. I didn't have to study. I would just listen to the teacher, and I just memorized everything. And it was typically eras of like the Byzantine, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but the Byzantine
Oh, I know that.
Empire,
Yeah. Hmm.
or or old, like the World War I, or Ferdinand, Russian, kings, and
All that, yeah.
that time, yeah, like that time was just so, like, I don't know, it was so interesting to me. And it's funny because I tend to like gravitate towards movies of that time.
Hmm. What was your what was your personality like in high school?
I mean, my personality was very much like it is now, actually. I went through a phase where I had to come back to my center, you know. But like naturally, how I am now, except not as mature, of course, um, is who I've always been.
I love that. Oh my
Just
God.
more
I feel like
mature,
I've met you.
more.
So I feel like I've, like the soul recognition where it's like, oh, you're from the same tribe as me. And it just so
Of course,
happened. And
absolutely.
there's this quote that I love. It's on my wall, but I need to try to memorize it for the sake of this podcast. But it said something like, there is a thread that connects you with every person you're supposed to meet, despite time, place, and location. And it's like the thread may stretch and tangle, but it you will connect with that person. So I feel like you're one of those people for me.
I honestly, I can't agree more about, like, I can't agree more. It's just so true. There are times in life that we just meet, our fellow mates from other lives. If you believe in other lives, you don't have to believe other lives. I personally feel like we're in a recycling system when we can see it in nature, and therefore, I mean, it's safe to say that it probably will be happening on a soul level. Nature mirrors everything and to us. We just need to be perceptive and still enough to realize what's happening. And yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, I agree. I think, especially as we come into our own and come into a more better understanding of ourselves, and pull back the layers of what we're not, and come into our authenticity, we just attract more of our tribe and more people that we are meant to collaborate and expand and bring them closer to their
Hmm.
mission, while simultaneously bringing us ourselves back to our own mission as well.
Yeah, I love that. Moving on to work, with all of that you do from, oh my gosh, entrepreneurship, being an investor, a yogi, a poet, did it all naturally, like organically happen, or were you working on two things at one time?
My life is not an organic happening. Usually it's involved with a lot of chaos and starting over and then losing my identity and then recreating a new one. And so that's the beauty of life, because I think it's not so linear, and how our society conditions us to, okay, we're 17 and now, we're finishing high school and then we go into college, and then after college we're 21, and then, it's very linear, this idea of how we're all supposed to live life. And it's just not the case. We're so individual. But that doesn't mean that we should have isolating lives, right? Let's not like mix the two together. Like, just because we're individual, we shouldn't adopt individualism to hyper individualism, But yeah, it's just so important to be okay with resetting the button and resetting yourself and revamping yourself and recreating yourself at any point, at any age, no matter what, with no shame and no regret. Because I think life ultimately is about experiencing everything to the max and creating. We're creators. And sometimes this linear perspective of how we need to be living life and how we need to adopt one set of skills or one type of work or one type of career for the rest of our lives is just, for me, it's just never been the case for me. And when I've tried, it's like, we're just
Yeah.
going to throw some chaos your way.
Yeah.
Because that's
When
not
you
your
said
path,
the
girl.
word, right? When you said the word reset, I don't know why, but like it struck a nerve in me. And this feels like a life coaching session in a sense, because I wanted to ask you, but I also want to ask myself, why did my body react that way when you said reset? Why do you think that it can be scary for people to reset? Like pause and just look around and be like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, our nervous system is built for this sense of safety and comfort, right? We
Mm-hmm.
don't want to lose ourselves. The idea of death, we don't even want to
Mm,
think about it. It's
yeah,
correlated to our own demise, our own dissolution of the identity.
yeah. My
That's
heart
the
is crying
reason
right
why
now.
people are not
That's how I
comfortable.
feel. Whew, man. Because when you think about it, it's like I remember one time the song by Chance, the rapper, he was like he's gonna cry at his own funeral. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I would do that. Because like just thinking of like losing myself, it's freaking scary.
So that's what it boils down to. Fundamentally, it's the idea of losing yourself, but also the death of yourself. And we're not teaching, or we're not talking, or we're not really having. Now there's death doulas, but again, this is also very fairly new, this whole idea of a death doula, that are holding people's hands and helping people through the process of death. But there's other processes of death that happen in our lives when we're alive. The process of losing a partner, the process of going through divorce, the process of losing parents, friends, animals, you name it. The process of sometimes, for instance, my two of my businesses had to close down for the pandemic. I had one running for 15 years and the other one for 6 years, and then gone overnight. So it's like life is teaching us constantly to let go and be okay with the surrender, and that it's okay to grief, as long as you come back to the acceptance and the gratitude of having that experience.
And do you feel the gratitude helps heal that space that has been wrecked from, having to let go?
There's no other choice. In fact,
Oh, Lord. Wow.
the mind, there's no other choice. When you think about it, when you lose yourself, there's no other choice. At the end of grieving, and at the end of holding on to something that you wanted to hold on to for dear life, whether that be money, career, person, whatever it is, at some point you have to let go. And in that letting go is the process of expansion, coming back into the heart and gratitude.
Oh, wow. Sydney, this is great. I feel like it's all hitting me, and it's like just hearing it and processing it. And because I think I know for me, oh, I feel like I have the fear of losing people that I really hold dear to my heart. And it's like, you're either going to go first or I'm going to go first. And if you happen to go first, God help me with how that may shift my whole, just being.
This is the reason why life is meant to be lived fully. You can't have aliveness without death, because you wouldn't appreciate the aliveness. And I know it sounds so logical and practical to understand and say, yeah, of course, but the grief is so hard. But you can't have one without the other. You wouldn't appreciate the experiences with people, places, things, and your aliveness otherwise. And it's easier said than done, but I have been working also for years with plant medicine and psychedelics in a ceremonial setting, okay? Authentically, and not as a spiritual junkie where I'm like constantly like ready for like, no, it's once every 2 years, when I really need it and I'm probably going through a little bit of a life change, and things are happening. Maybe I can't make sense out of things for my own self, and maybe I don't have the mentors that I wish I had in that moment, or just seeking deep answers for myself that propelled me to also seek this medicine. And one of the greatest gifts, there's many great gifts of working with these plant medicines and in a ceremonial way with the right people, and making sure you're vetting for your people and all that. You have to do the work, the homework for it. Is that if you're lucky to have an ego death, there's a lot of medicine there, because it's actually showing you the ultimate surrender and the ultimate letting go. And then you come back desiring to appreciate your life and like get all the things done and create and do that spoken word that you've been thinking in your mind and you wanted to record, and now you're recording it. Yeah, it's important. So that ego death highlights how much aliveness that you need to be focusing on and working on, to appreciate, because we're on this journey. We can't get off unless we leave the body. Like, we're on this journey. Yeah. We're here. So might as well just live it and be okay with resetting, because it's all preparing us for the final reset, for the final letting go, the final surrender. And there's no coming back from that. At least not in
And when
this
you say
body.
that, you mean death?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. This is getting deep. Well, deeper. um, Still in the work realm. In the work realm, as
Yeah,
far
let's
as
keep it
real
light. Let's keep it
estate,
light.
right? Because I'm just like,
No,
oh man,
listen.
this is like
Wait.
way
I, this
deeper.
this is medicine, though. Let me tell you something. What I'm seeing in today's world, and sorry for cutting you off, what I'm seeing in today's world is this spiritual bypassing of not seeing the darkness as the medicine, of not seeing the death of things, the resetting as the medicine, and just love and light. Let's keep it positive. Let's keep it positive. And it's like, life is not just about positivity. You can't have positive without the negative. And how do we hold space for those? How do we have safe spaces for those moments where it's not love and light and not positive? And so it's important to have these conversations, bring light to it. We can always shift to something else, but be present with these dark medicine moments, these dense moments,
Yeah.
that, because all we do is try to distract ourselves from not looking at the inevitable
Oh my God.
fate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it just forces us to be more alive. Sorry, one second.
All right.
to be more alive. It just helps us and holds our hand to be like, live it and live it
Yeah.
well.
There was a quote that I saw last night randomly, and it said, the healer is not the person that you go to kind of like console you. The healer is that triggering situation, the triggering conversation that puts you face to face of, what still needs to be healed within you. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I feel like that goes hand in hand with what you said, that it's like, it's very essential to be, light, love, positive, whatever, but it's like, but look at the dark time or that triggering moment as the healer. And it's like, this is what needs to, start taking place, and like to face it. Because I don't believe in running away from things that we still need to heal from. If
And
anything, it'll
again,
get worse.
nature mimics all of this, right? Like for instance, if you don't work out, right? You don't work out, you don't have a healthy body, you don't have a beautiful body, you don't have a strong body, you don't have like your body, you don't have muscles. And so what needs to happen for you to have a strong body? Grit, darkness, you
Mm.
have to get
Some
it,
pain.
do it.
Yeah.
Pain, you got to go, and like when you're not motivated, you got to figure out how you're going to gain that motivation to take yourself to the gym or take yourself to that class. And
Hmm.
so, but then when you come out, it's just like, you feel lighter. You're
Yeah.
in the lightness of it. So,
Wow.
in everything in our lives, we don't really see, but it's hidden. It's hidden
Hmm.
there. And that's the medicine. The medicine is the dense, the dark, and then from that, it's the relief, letting go, the
Yeah.
surrender, the love, the experience, the gratitude.
I love this. I feel like this could be the episode in it of itself, but we have a little more to go. So I wanted to know, in the business sense with the real estate, how did you get your start? Did you have a mentor or two that you could, bounce ideas off of or provide guidance?
I wish I can say there was mentors. I really wish that. And again, this is not a victimization or pointing fingers at anyone, but obviously there's a systemic and economic, issue within our society where um, we don't have the resources of having a mentor. There's not really any of that available to us unless you're lucky, and some people are lucky to find mentors, and they can be from any race, creed, um, but and that's now. But when I was growing up, I make it sound like I'm so old, but but at my time, I was seen as competition. I was seen as someone that, you don't deserve, to be on top. And I was part of a hierarchical system and also patriarchal system. And we still are experiencing a lot of the remnants of that. So there wasn't anyone really gun ho to teach me things because they knew deep down, they knew if they taught me something that I was going to supersede them because they can see my power. They can see my energy, my tenacity of the grit, because to even get to that point of trying to seek a mentor or being in those spaces, it took a lot for me to even get there. And that work they didn't see, but they can surely feel. And so there weren't any mentors. But I did have an interesting group of friends. A lot of them were, your nighttime owls or your club goers. And, there would be nighttime owls, goers at night, but then there would be professional in the day. And I'm thinking about my Romanian friend Bogdan, and he was like, out of so many people that I knew, because a lot of people in New York City, but it's a transient city, so people get lost in translation, people come and go, and so you never really create true depth. in these relationships. And at that time, obviously that's what I craved. I love, I love connection, and human beings desire connection. And in our society, we're adopting like this like isolation. We're not as connected as we should be, actually. And I didn't even know at that time. I didn't know that those feelings were coming up for me. But anyway, Bogdan, kept seeing the struggle. He's this Romanian guy, architect, kind of older guy, liked me, but I was very clear that we're going to be friends. I mean, he must have been like 25 years older than me. And one day, he saw me struggling, and I would talk to him like vulnerably. I think that was the only time I really spoke vulnerably with someone. I really have a connection with people from other countries versus like American people, because the American culture for me it's just this. I love it. Thank you so much, America. I mean, I'm American. Thank you for all the, the opportunities. Cause I know in a lot of cultures, you're born a certain way and you end that way. And so there has to be, gratitude, and I am grateful for that. But at the same token, there is this other side that, it's very competitive, and no one's gonna like be like, hey, let me give you a hand on that. Like, it's just not. It wasn't the thing to do. It really wasn't. And it's just because everyone's trying to get ahead. So anyway, Bogdan was like, I have this Romanian girlfriend. He's like, you got to meet my Romanian friends. And there's a huge group of them. And let me tell you something about people from other cultures, like Romanians or Ukrainians or Russians, or they stick together. They stick together. When they go out, there's 20 of them. When they go out and they do things, there are 20 of them. When they're in the know, when they're doing something, investing, whatever it is, they're like hooking each other up. And that's something that I didn't really have growing up, or I didn't really see. I didn't know where I belonged. A lot of the times I'm like, I'm not white and I'm not black. I'm Latina, but yet here I'm not American. And in Puerto Rico, I'm not Latina, I'm American. So I just never belonged anywhere. So point is that no one was kind of trying to hold my hand and trying to guide me or anything like that. But Bogdan did suggest to meet one of his friends, Romanian friends, and to teach me some sort of game that she was on. Give me game on some real estate property management businesses that she was doing. And we literally, this goes to show you, like, and it's so true, why people felt so threatened about me for such a long time, was that I need to see something once and I can do it. I don't know what it is. I just, let me be in the same space and I'll just watch, and I'll like exactly replicate that same technique. She sat with me at the bar, and I think we spoke for like 30 minutes, an hour, maybe max. And she gave me the whole thing. And within a few days, I replicated it, and she supported me, and we were supporting each other. So when first we started doing this in our own homes, running it from our own homes. And then at some point, we were kind of working together, like helping each other through this process as we were growing in it. And I didn't know her.
And this was property management?
Yeah. And I didn't know her, and so people from other cultures have always given me some tips and some breadcrumbs to kind of like, but I wouldn't say that we were like that she, that it was a mentor, but I would say that it was just breadcrumbing me into the right direction, which I so appreciate. And I think that was the only time that someone has ever done that in my life. The only time ever. And then I started making like $6,000 a week cash out of that business, and it just kept growing. And it was just like it was like night and day. It just literally switched.
Yeah.
But I think
question. I
that
don't want to forget this.
the universe. Go ahead.
When you were making that amount of money on a weekly basis, did you ever struggle initially? Like, oh my gosh, I'm not used to this amount, sorry, I'm not used to this amount and the frequency of it. Or were you just like, thank you, universe, that's my bag. Thank you, send me that. Or what was that process like?
Oh, interesting. I totally forgot about that because remember, we started this conversation with scarcity. There was there was this feeling of like I couldn't believe it. Like it was just like my like it was scared actually. I was scared. I was like like I couldn't breathe sometimes because I just couldn't believe this was happening. And also I thought like at some point I it was going to diminish or that it was going to disappear, you know, and I was just expecting for something to go wrong because, you know, and but I kept going and I kept going and I had the Romanian girl doing the same thing and we were kind of talking. We became really good friends. And then I had one of my best friends that started managing for me. I was like, "Do you want to work? I need help." And I had my best friend like helping me manage the property, and it just went from there. It just really went from there. And then 2 years later, Airbnb, VRBO came out. I started using these platforms and other platforms, and I really could have expanded this business much further. But again, I've never really been one to get greedy, or I really enjoyed freeing up my time to study other things, which is why I've done so many things. You know, it wasn't about like, well, I'm going to. No, at first it was. At first it was to set up a business like that. It takes a lot of time. But then after a while, it, you know, after 2, 3 months, you know the ins and outs and you get all the protocols and all the, you know, contracts and everything written out and all the questions that your customers may ask are already written down with the answers. And now you're sending that to them. And so like you literally, I mean, I got it down to a perfect T where I didn't have to be there. So when I freed up my time and I was making more money than I ever had, or making more money than other people that are working 40 hours a week, that's when I started to go do some healing work. That's when I was like, oh my God, I can actually afford to go to Burning Man. Oh my God, I can actually afford to go to a festival. Oh my God, I can actually buy the clothes that I desire. Oh my God, I can actually buy really healthy food and I don't have to eat out of a can anymore. Or, you know what I mean? Like I can actually, and then starting to see that, oh, if you're wealthy, then you get the good stuff, even food, even whole foods, you know? And I started to see the disparity of like having and not having, because I never had for such a long time and my family didn't either. So understanding both worlds was important for me and for my life, to be able to understand people and understand the circumstances that a lot of us are finding us in, and also what our society, how it's built, you know, and how it caters and favors those that have.
Wow. Did you feel like you ever, like when you went through that transition of not having to having surplus, that you grieved your younger self or grieved? I think it's just like in my head, I'm like imagining if I was you in that situation, I would be like, what the fuck did I just survive? I guess, like, being in a car. Well, I've been in a car accident and I realized I came out the car unscratched. And then it was like the next day and the day after, I was so sad because it's like, oh my God, what did I just get through?
Yeah, all of my 20s was like that, especially when I started to become an entrepreneur and kind of regaining the time that I had lost, that I felt that I had lost because I had to be responsible and just focus on my scarcity and do all these odd jobs that were paying $7 an hour, $6 an hour, and not getting anywhere. And it was just really difficult. And I wasn't mourning my old self. I was actually mourning. I actually realized how much trauma I had been in and how much it had been affecting my interpersonal relationships and how defensive I was. I started to see all my blind spots and how I wasn't equipped to really survive and thrive in the world. And how toxic, because at that time, you know, New York, you go out and there's alcohol everywhere. So social drinking is more like being an alcoholic, you know? And so there's that side of it. And now you're going to art galleries and there's drinks there. And now you're going to bars and there's drinks, and clubs and dinner, and a spa, they're serving mimosas, you know, brunch, there's mimosas. Like, it was just, and you start to see, when you're on the other side, now sort of liberated and making money, coming in surplus, as you start to realize, wait a minute, I'm so grateful that I have this surplus. I'm responsible for this. This is a gift. This is a gift. And there are a lot of people that work really, really hard and never get to have this break. And I have gotten it. I figured it out, and I'm figuring it out. Wait, but how? Somehow I feel super responsible to take this surplus and start to do more healing work, and start to take the avenue of healing. And because it came to a point where I had the beautiful loft apartment in Midtown East in Sutton Place, one of the oldest, richest neighborhood in New York City. It's old wealth, is where old money lives. I had a loft apartment, 2 floors, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and a backyard. Like, I always said that that's what I was going to do for myself, and I ended up doing it. And by that time, I was like 28 years old, 29. And, you know, I had a good chunk of change in my bank account, you know, more than probably most people, way more than most people, you know, not billionaire status, not millionaire status, but still way more than most people. And just having that responsibility of, wait, I have this knowledge of not having it in scarcity, and then now having, there's something that I need to do here, because I would look at myself in the mirror and I felt this void. I felt this void. Something was off. I had everything checked off. I had everything checked off, but I realized that I was mourning the trauma, all the trauma that I had went through that hadn't been resolved, that I had no answers for, that I had no one consoling me and cheering me on in my family, because they didn't have the capacity to do it, because they were still in scarcity themselves.
I feel like I just need to like take a moment because it's like even just this week, so I'm in the process of becoming a life coach, a certified life coach, and I was in a session where I was the coachee, and I had to kind of go back into something that I realized I was suppressing. And where am I going with this? You said something a while ago that I was just like, wow. But I think, oh, the people not having capacity. And I realized that there were some things with my relationship with my dad that weighed very heavy on me. And I came to the conclusion, or I have an idea, that it's because he may not have the capacity to, I don't know, be more gentle or not be so quick to judgment and all those stuff. So definitely feel you when you say, like, sometimes I feel like it's not about, like, we want to be celebrated, we want to be reassured and stuff like that, but sometimes the people who we're going to for that may not know how to give that.
No, and that's just because they're not equipped with the experience to be your cheerleader, because they haven't experienced that. You know, they're still, a lot of the times, and I'll just speak from my experience, like, they're still where I left them, you know, and not because they were lazy and they didn't want to do the work. It's because it's systemic and they didn't see a way out, and then it becomes a psychological issue, and then they have no confidence and no self-worth, and there's no tools out there to really help unless you have a lot of money to go get the healing that you need. So, because healing is a privilege. Healing is a privilege.
I've never heard it said that way before.
Healing is a privilege. and we have to take responsibility for that, because all of us are partaking in the system. And that's why I think, healers and people that are owning meditation studios like I did, there was always like, okay, whoever didn't have, pay what you can, but then we're living in the society where we need to pay the rent for this space, and so it just, again, it's systemic. And so when you do find yourself in points in your life where you're free and you have financial security and you're stable and you have a surplus, yeah, you realize that I didn't always have privilege, but I became part of the privileged. And now, because I became part of the privileged percentage, I realize that healing is a privilege, because my mom doesn't have access to this. She doesn't have access. And so it becomes like, so now it's not like so much race anymore. It's like, well, it's financial access. And that's how you're segregated.
You're dropping so many gems. Let me see. I don't forget this question. I have, how do you personally navigate your decision making when you're in, I guess, like a fork in the road, whether it's business, where it's like, oh, should I go with this deal or should I go with that one, or personally?
Wait, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, no worries. So, like, when I'll say for business, when you're in between, like, trying to make a decision, what is your personal way in navigating, I guess, the right answer? Like, do you go into like a deep meditation, or do you just kind of step away, don't think about it at all, and the answer will appear?
I don't think it's that etheric. I think I'm very in tuned and very connected to the divinity and the source, and that's just because I've always seeked out healing and the importance of healing generational trauma, the importance of not healing just generational trauma, but in that healing, you're healing collectively, because then who you are and who you show up as in the world is you show up whole, healthy, and healed. Not entirely healed, because we're going to all have blind spots. I'm not saying like I have all the answers and that I'm fully healed. No, there's going to be blind spots that we always have. But I show up more whole. And so that in that interaction, I'm spreading healing just with my vibration alone, because I've done that work. So there is an element of esoteric in my decisions, like symbolism, and like, is this gravitating? Am I magnetizing with this? If I'm shelling out something new, are people gravitating to this? But not always, because sometimes there's a level of momentum that needs to happen in a particular area or in a particular project that you're doing. And it's not necessarily that you're not magnetizing and that it's not meant for you, but it's that maybe you need to have more of a forward momentum energy that you're putting into to then magnetize. And it's not always that way. Sometimes, yeah, you do something and then it's magnetized and now it's like, 50,000 views, right? Like, it can go both ways. It can go both ways. So, but there is this esoteric part of me, but then there's also, before the esoteric, well, I was born esoteric. I mean, I was born with Jupiter, so let's just be real. But but then there was like this practicality and this discipline and this tenacity that was built in my identity, that was very rooted. Like, oh, take an idea and root that, you know, um, root that, so that you know that your baseline and your root chakra is safe and secure, and you're not in scarcity. So a lot of my decisions are based on my past experiences with work, with my businesses, with my projects, with the people that partaken in those projects and those relationships, and the things that happen in between. And a lot of it also is like what's worked and what hasn't worked. And then, but also allowing that what didn't work might have been because there wasn't enough simmering and there wasn't enough momentum. Like sometimes what I found was a lot of my work was in real estate. Real estate is a type of business that you see you can turn in, like you can make money in a day. You can get $5,000 in one day. You know what I mean? You can close a deal, close a contract, and you're like you're making like 20 grand a month or more. With something like spirituality, like a meditation studio, I had to literally decondition myself, and it was so hard for me because it was a simmer. It was patient. It was a different kind of business model where it might take 10 years. It might take 10 years for you to become a well-known facility, a well-known space, a safe space for people. It's more of like gaining trust, and because people are entrusting their soul to you, their vulnerability to you. It requires a lot more tender care, sort of like a baby, and that was something that I didn't really understand because I was getting impatient with that business. I was like, but wait a minute, but like I just put out so many feelers, and I did all the things, and I still didn't get a full house. And yeah, so yeah, it just depends. It just depends.
Thank you for sharing that. Um, let me think. What has been a recent business or personal conversation that has been resonating with you as far as the message,
The message of.
the conversation, the business conversation, the personal conversation where it's like, wow, like food for thought. I'm actually like that's resonating with me and I want to like whether implement it. Like I know for one, this conversation with you, it's going to be on my mind all day today and tomorrow.
So you're saying if I had like an aha moment in time where this has happened to me, where I wanted to
Oh no, sorry. I
implement.
mean like present day now, if there's been a business conversation that you've had where like they put you on game about something or a personal conversation with a friend or a stranger that it's like there was a gem drop and it's still lingering inside of you.
I think I've suffered from hyper independence, and so usually people are asking me, you know. But recently, I have been playing with being in spaces where people know more than me, and that was very interesting. Which it brought me to Ibiza, and there was a retreat happening with all these amazing speakers and people spearheading different types of initiatives in the health industry and the biohacking industry and the fitness, you name it, psychology, everything. And after that, there was also this other retreat with the owner of the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd, and Shervin, who's like the owner and founder of Symbiotica. And the amount of people that gravitated to these events were very, very, very intellectual, spiritual, connected, soft spoken, amazing humans. And I can't remember the last time that I was in those spaces. Um, and yeah, it was very inspiring. It was very inspiring. I can't particularly say that it was like a gem drop, but it's just like a realization of how important it is to be in spaces with people who know more, have more experience, to to stay creative, to open up your network, and also for ideas and connections. So
I feel like when you said earlier, what was the term? Uh, wait, being in a difference. Oh, resetting. When you had said the word resetting, and I was like, oh, it kind of like I felt a reaction in my body. I feel like I could see how, because I've seen it within myself. One, I purposely put myself in a space where it's like I'm the dumbest one in the room. it feels like a reset because it's like, oh, I'm used to being able to speak on a topic like that with someone else. So when I'm not and I'm more listening, it's like a reset for one, like you don't know that much as you think you may do. But then also too, it's like, oh, how does this make me feel? Like, do you feel like you're less than? Do you feel like you're inadequate? Do you feel like an imposter? So, oh man, this has
Well,
been so
I
healing.
will just say to that huh? Sorry, say that again.
Oh no, I was just saying like this has been so healing, this episode.
Yeah, I was just gonna like say something to what you said. I think that, you know, I've gotten really great education. I mean, not Harvard education or anything like that, but I think life has been my education, and also just, going to university in New York City, Baruch, and the new school. I actually went to the new school as well for a second degree. And yeah, I mean, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I find that I tend to be the go-to person a lot in the room, because I have had a meditation studio, or I've been running a business for 15 years, and there was a lot of success there. And because I've done so much in my life, and I've worn many hats. I've also helped parent my siblings. So I've been a mother to many. And for me, being in spaces where people are smarter than me in other areas, right? Because it's one thing to be well versed and well read. It's another thing to actually have the real life experiences of what you read in the
Yeah,
books.
yeah, mm-hmm,
You know what I mean? And
mm-hmm,
when I say smarter people in the room, it's just more smarter in how to convince the world, how to magnetize in the world, and essentially um, how to look at your balance sheet and increase your balance sheet. Really, it's more for capital gain, right? Like the smartest people in the room for me would be like, okay, these people are, on press more often, and they have something to say, and they're articulate, and they're talking about this particular subject. And, but so they're smart in that way, and how to convince and magnetize the masses. But I wouldn't say that they're the smartest, like, overall person in the room.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
just
yeah,
they're just knowing how to navigate life, right? In such a
yeah.
way that we deem that as successful, which again, it's all about what you think success is for yourself at the end of the day.
True, true. Let's move on to top. Well, normally I have a top two section, but I'm like, you know what? I feel like Sydney speaks can speak to a lot. So this is going to be top three section. So to start with, as far as travel, what would you say are your top three, um, I guess the top three destinations outside of North America that had an impact on you that you've traveled to?
There's a lot of gems in the world that sometimes I get a little bit like, oh, should I say it? Because they're just going to be flooded with tourists. So I don't know if I should just hold off and just tell you secretly.
Yeah.
No, but um, so I have been to about 60 countries in the world thus far, and I've lived in two. One is India and one is in Germany. So many places offer their own sweet little gems, like their own unique understanding. And gosh, I mean, it's really hard to say, but the most impactful for me, God, it's really hard to say. I mean, are we talking about like you're having fun by the beach and like just like decompressing, or like lessons,
Let me
sweet lessons that you've
see.
learned, or like, spiritually impactful? Like, every place offers something for a specific area in your life.
Yeah, yeah.
You know
Let
what
me
I mean?
think,
It's
because
it's
that's a good question. Yeah. I think maybe because I also too want you to like, save things for you where it's like no one knows this and it's only for me and that.
No, it's
But
fine. It's okay.
I guess I don't know. It's like I don't even know to say, okay, like in the past 5 years, and it helps you narrow down the choices. But I guess just a place that it's like, you know what, that place was so special to me because I was in a place in my life where I needed that like newness, or I
Okay.
don't know, this place is amazing because the food.
Because of the food.
Yeah.
Oh man. Listen, I've been traveling since, I was 25. I think that was the first time that I did this whole like European tour, and I went to like 6 countries and in like a span of a month and a half. And I went with my best friend at the time. And I remember falling to my knees when I was in the Sistine Chapel, because remember, I love history. And I'm like this brown girl, this Latina brown girl, although I didn't grow up in the projects, but I definitely grew up in very marginalized neighborhoods. So for me, and again, at the time, there was no social media. No one was going traveling and being a travel blogger. There was none of that. There was no hope for that or any vision for that, or inspiration for that. So for me, it was like I fell onto my knees because I'm like, this is what I've been studying, and I'm an artist by nature. I used to paint all the time, paint. And I was like, at 25, I fell to my knees and I'm crying and I'm like, I made it. I told myself I made it, and I was just beginning, but I told myself I made it at that time. You make it. There's always times that you make it, but at different chapters, and then it keeps increasing because you have more goals to reach. But I won't say that that was the most impactful. I'm just saying that was like my first experience of just like really like being very present with something that I was able to check off as like I completed. Like none of my family has ever left the United States. I'm the first one to do basically everything, So it was like huge moment for me to be like, just really be present with that moment and just like in gratitude, like, you know. But I would say like living in India was very impactful for me. I think it's a really hard thing for people to do in the West, is to live in a place like that, because it's humbling and it's also very much different to how we were raised. They don't believe in toilet paper. So those people that went out in the pandemic 2020 buying tons of toilet paper, they're definitely not going to India. There's no toilet paper.
Wait, so
you know,
how are they
they're
wiping themselves?
they're washing. There's a bucket and there's soap and there's water. And sometimes there's no soap, so there's just buckets and water. But again, you can buy your own toilet paper as a traveler. That's it's available to you. But what I'm saying is that it just takes a certain level of again, the death of your identity, because it's the total opposite of how we are raised in the States, from the cuisine and the spices that they put in their food to how they communicate with each other, which looks like they're screaming at each other all the time, to the nonstop honking just to say hello. It's not even honking like get out of the way or you shouldn't be here. It's like hello, and it's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's like, can you stop? And so like everything that we're used to, India is like the opposite. And so yeah, it takes a level of ego death to go to India and live there. A lot of people don't like it, but I found that I am really comfortable with having a lot of ego deaths, even if it's challenging and it's hurtful, and sometimes it's just really not, doesn't feel good, or sometimes I don't like it. But I think that there's medicine when you choose to have these deaths, because you experience more aliveness. You live more and you have more stories to tell.
Top three, that section. Top three books, your favorite books, for whatever reason.
You know, I'm gonna go a little classic here just because they've been really transformative in my life, especially at a time where I needed so much guidance. I think those my books have been my mentors in a lot of ways. So, Stephen Covey, the seven daily habits of successful people. I think I'm saying that right. Um, yeah, that's just been paramount into how to, successfully run and be an entrepreneur and run a business. And the habits that I didn't see growing up was going to take me there, you know. Um, the Power of Now with Eckhart Tolle has also been really amazing with bringing intimacy within your own self, right? Like the idea of self-love and presence, which he was touching on tantra in a lot of ways, right? Because the power of now, I mean, he just named it the power of now, but it's really the principles of tantra which comes from Vedanta technology of presence and the intimacy with presence, because all we have is now and now and now and now. And just when I said now 3 nows ago, that we're never going to get that time back, you know. um and The Alchemist.
Oh my
Love
God,
The
yes.
Alchemist. My
Mm.
God.
I
Paulo
remember
Coelho.
when I was reading
Um,
that book, like the first time I was reading it, like I remember it starting something off like the boy was sleeping, and I'm like, what is this? I thought it was. I didn't know that it was going to be, spoken in third person. But I was like, no, try to revisit the book again because this book can't be so, monumental in so many ways and for no reason. So when I read it again, I was like, oh, okay, I got it. I got it.
yeah, and it was like the perfect element between esoteric and symbolism and the journey and the path of life of that boy, and then coming back in full circle and knowing that the medicine was always right underneath him
Mm-hmm.
and the gifts were always there. Um, yeah, there's many books. I've read many, many books, but those just came to mind
Yeah,
now.
I love that. What would you say your go to 2 to 3 mental health practices that like always get you right?
I think first, before talking about the mental health practices, it's just like to have grace with yourself. We're not machines. We're not always going to show up perfectly within our practices, and also be compassionate with yourself when you are struggling, right? Versus like trying to force yourself to practice something for the sake of your mental well-being, which is like counterintuitive because you're forcing it versus just being with what's happening and allowing the feelings to come through, feeling it, and then finally surrendering and then getting into your practice, you know? Um, yeah, I mean, Himalayan yoga has really helped me a lot. Um, I'm just so grateful that I was able to really hone in. And I know yoga is like, it's a worldwide thing and there's different lineages, but for me, just ritual has been also really beautiful. It's a moment where you can connect to presence and the divine, and ritual could just be, that doesn't mean that you're going to have to go now find a ritual teacher, which would be nice, but you don't have to. It's just being present, like lighting a candle and maybe putting an offering on your altar for your ancestors or whoever or whatever you want to offer, or to God, divine, source, universe, right? Um, yeah, so ritual is really beautiful. Also, practices in Kriya yoga or breathing techniques are also really useful. Sometimes just also walking on the beach, being in the elements are really amazing. And um, being in community.
Oh my gosh, I've so learned that this year. It made me question, like, how the heck was I functioning before, having a good group of people and not all from, all with the same mindset. But wow, yeah, community, I would say I was sleeping on the power of community, because I was just good with having my one or two people. But it's like, no, having a whole, and, you know, and even maybe going to a place, whether people go to a mosque, a church, or just um, a friend's patio, and then we all come there and, have a soiree and speak on what's bothering us, speak on what's happening for us, what's helping us. It's like, wow, I needed this.
Yeah, I mean, like it's being noted that the way to longevity and good mental health, and even preventative of diseases like dementia, is our social network, how we socialize, and our peers and our community. And we're not promoting that in our culture. We're not really, I mean, now we're seeing it, and people really know the dire need for it, because there's a lot of people living in isolation. And not because they're bad people, or they're not good enough, or they're not cool enough. Um, but it's just part of the system. And we're not living in tribes anymore, which tribes are really, it's so important for mental health.
I didn't even think about that, as far as like, wow, that was such a subtle mind blow a while ago, where it's just like, dang, like when you said tribes, it's like, I know I'm not living like that. And it's like, how those people, and I don't want to say like remote areas, but just even like a culture, like when you were saying the Romanian and all of that, it's like they're running in their herd, and there's power in numbers. Wow. You should write a book.
I've been told, I already, like today I've been told, and like I think the other day I was told to do that too. Yeah, I mean, and I think also I'm still sort of struggling with finding my tribe. Like there's pockets of there's a lot, I know a lot of people, but the people that I know are just, yeah, I mean, there's community events, and there's community and different pockets in the world that you can like just come and drop in, but they also come with a lot of issues. There's a lot of issues and dynamics and power plays, and there's you can still see the amount of work that we still need to do within ourselves to be able to hold space for others and really have conversations that are healing and empowering. And um so I have yet to really, and I'm not looking for perfection, but I have yet to really find that really beautiful, like, okay, I don't have to escape from this community. I can always keep coming back, or you know what I mean? There's not longevity in our communities yet where I feel comfortable enough to keep coming back. The spaces are still not safe enough to continue to want to come back, and maybe coming back looks like, yeah, maybe coming back looks like once a year in some spaces, and sometimes not. Sometimes you're like, I had enough, I've seen enough, and not my type, not my thing, not my. So we still have a lot of work to do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I totally resonate with that. This is like a random question. How do you feel? So I've noticed within myself, my younger self, My tolerance was very low with bullshit. With
For
hmm? Oh,
yeah, yeah.
I realized my tolerance was very low with just foolishness, and if it wasn't making sense, like if I didn't see the logic or like the proper reasoning in it, it's like, oh, this is a waste of time. And I would just kind of push that friendship to the side where it became estranged, and then it's like, oh, I don't talk to that person anymore. Do you feel I feel like sometimes that's necessary and sometimes it's not, because then people can feel discarded, and then who is having grace for those people? But when you were speaking on, you know, I've had enough of that community, or, whatever that situation is, and I'm good. It just made me think and look at myself, and I can be like that sometimes.
It's funny because we're talking about this and I can hear my guru talking in India like, "Oh, you're never the problem, it's always everybody else." I swear to God, I can hear his voice right now in my head. And I'm just like, there's some truth to what he's saying, but at the same time, there's some people that just love to put things under the rug, you know? And not look at like and not solve problems and just be like, let's just put a bow tie on it no matter if it's like sloppy or anything, and just make believe it's not there, and just just stay on your mission, your staying power, and focus on your practices, and nothing else matters, and keep the momentum going, and that's it, and forget it. It's just like we're all learning together, and like forget other people's like blind spots and shitty behavior, and just keep going, and just your staying power is number one. And yeah, like I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. And I could see my guru, and I get it. I get it. But at the same time, I at the same time we're a people that have a lot of triggers and traumas, and if you don't work those things out, they can come to the surface. Now, I'm a person that has done a lot of work, and I found that I'm a lot more patient and tolerant. And I find that a lot of things don't affect me like they used to. So if someone's behavior is borderline narcissistic, or they're really trying to get a rise out of me because somehow in some way they know they can't have me, but they like me and they're attracted to me, but they know they're never going to have a chance, but they want to just like stick it to me because they know like maybe in high school they were always trying to get the pretty girl and they could never get her, and now she's here and he knows he can't get her, so he's trying to, there's all these mind games that like you never know who's going to show up in these communities, right? With their own crap, for lack of a better word, but it's true. And so, and then the thing is, when you have so much experience in life, you could see right through, the wound that needs healing. And so then compassion and empathy and patience. But then it wears thin when there are some people that don't stop, that don't stop at anything to try to get a rise out of you. They make it their mission in the community to try to get a rise out of you, to a point where maybe they'll slam a door in your face, or maybe they'll walk slower if you're behind them, or like all these tactics that you're just like, wait, this hasn't happened to me since high school, like how is this happening right now? Really, that's your level of consciousness? You get to see it, and you're just like, you find it humorous, but at the same time you need to assert the respect. So then there's a moment where, yes, the tolerance is like, okay, you still have tolerance, but now you need to voice it and say, this is my boundary, and now, in that, and then you just get to see how you relate to it. And I have to say, I've been really proud of myself and how I've shown up in different circumstances, because it's really hard to get to me, because I can actually see why people do the things that they do. I've been around enough and enough experiences with scarcity, not scarcity, being on both sides of the spectrum in society, to understand the tricks and the things and the nuances that people do for attention, validation, for all kinds of things that are related to wounding. But asserting your position and your self-respect and your vocalizing of what you see and saying, how can I help you? How can I be of service? But I just want to let you know I'm not tolerating
I
this.
see what the fuck you doing.
And
I
so if you
get
want to
it.
work with
Yeah,
me, we
right.
can work together. But if you don't, then we'll just leave it here. Right?
Exactly. Wow. I'm really glad. I
So,
feel. Sorry, go ahead.
no, okay, no, it's fine. I was just like, it's just about that. I was just saying it's just about you just get to see. The thing is, community is so good because you get to reflect how much you've grown. And again, I'm not Miss Perfect. I don't say that I know it all, but it's just you get to reflect how much you've worked on or how much you haven't worked on and what you do in those community dynamics, what comes out of you that you get to see, oh, that's my blind spot. Oh, wow, that made me feel insecure. Oh, you get to see yourself in different facets. But for me, it was like, oh, wow. Okay, I see this wounding pattern. I see that person's wounding pattern. I see this person really reflecting me as a mirror and as someone that I can trust in this community. And you just get to see so many things. So, just to kind of close the topic of that, it's just, it's not easy, to constantly in a community to deal with people like that, because especially if you come from a lot of trauma and wounding, yes, you've done the work and you're on the other side, you're more patient and tolerant, and your virtues are really with a lot of integrity, but you don't want to deal with that. You just don't want you're done with that chapter. You're just like over it, done, learned the lesson. I don't want to be your teacher. I didn't sign up to be your teacher. Like you just need to like you need to just remove yourself from my sphere, you know? Um so I think that I've put myself in communities and lived in communities for that reason, to understand how I would eventually want to build my own or moving forward, because I do feel like, co-living, co-working spaces are going to be the thing in the future, because our isolation behavior and the dire need for social structures and creating connection that we desperately need, right? But I think that the principles and rules, and I don't want to say rules like, like some regime or something, but like just principles, like, Burning Man principles. They have Burning Man principles. You can look them up. There's like, I think 7 or 10 principles of Burning Man, which are awesome. Like principles like that are just posted on the main hall, and everyone knows the deal, and, respect each other. And like, yes, freedom of speech is allowed as long as you're not hurting someone, right? Or, like things that are like for the collective. They're not just self-serving, but they're for the collective peace, right? This kind of synarchy and this synergy of the collective, where there's the rules and then there's like the equality for everybody, right? That I think that we're missing that that's the missing link, because yes, accept everyone for who they are and what they are, awesome, but then there are just behaviors that are unacceptable, and people are not yet there. They haven't decolonized their mind, they haven't done the work. So it's like maybe there needs to be like prerequisites before for certain co-living spaces that you have had to do before applying,
Yeah.
to make sure that you're vetted and you're equipped to be in a social environment like this, that's required for more harmonious gathering, a more harmonious balance.
Hmm. Let me see. What else do I want to pick your brain about? The best piece of advice that you've received in, I don't know, maybe it be in the past or just recently, but advice maybe that was given to you from someone, or advice that you told yourself, and it's like, oh, I like this. Like, I'm going to keep running with this.
I think life has just been my guide and my teacher and my mentor. So I don't really, and I don't want to come off like like again, I know it or anything like that, but it's just life advises me. You know what I mean? Like my lessons advise me, you know? Um, so it's not really people advising me. Um, just because I put myself in extreme experiences to then get the advice that I need for myself to then share it, because that's what I essentially what I'm here to do as a projector. It's to guide the energies of others. So therefore I need to have extreme experiences or experiences that otherwise other people wouldn't have or didn't have because of circumstantial experiences that, hey, your friend Sydney here, your guide Sydney here has. And so I think because of the spectrum that I've experienced in life and the full spectrum of like darkness and light in all its variations and 50 shades of gray. Um, I tend to put myself in peak experiences because that's all I know. That's all I've ever known. You know? It's all I've ever known. That's like my nature at this point, my identity, part of my identity. So the advice I would say is a huge, huge advice in the last, I'd say, what's going to be 2024, the last 3 years has been detachment and understanding detachment and really surrendering. And then it's not easy, as we were saying before, coming in full circle here. Experienced a lot of loss this year in so many facets. It wasn't just like, oh, I lost my dog and that was it. No, no, like that's another thing with my experiences. Not only that I had peak experience in my life and I now choose peak experiences, but when something bad happens, 10 other awful things happen. So life also gives me peak. Yeah. Life also gives me peak experiences without me asking for it or without me choosing it. So, I mean, I had my dog die and my one of my closest friends passed away in the same month last November. Left 4 children, just died one day of a heart attack out of nowhere. And was still dealing with my 7 year breakup, right? And lost a good amount of money in the market, enormous. I mean, it could possibly be people's retirement kind of money, at the same time. And I laugh now because, and I'm laughing and I'm so light about it because there was a lot of moments where I had to realize that this is like death, right? This is like death. Grieving is like death. And like, this is all preparing me for something and it's preparing me for my inevitable exit as well. And that, you know, sometimes we think certain things in our lives make us who we are, or that like if we have this, this item here, or that somehow we feel more powerful and that we feel more confident and more secure. And I've learned that no, like your sense of safety and security is something so deep seated within that you can cultivate without the material, any material thing to validate it.
Wow. I feel like I want to cry
And
in my heart.
there was so much. Yeah,
Like
no, go ahead. You can cry. This
when
is a
you
safe
said,
space.
right? I feel like this was like a setup for myself. Like, girl, look what you did to yourself. But when you said like, all that you went through this year, or what has been happening, and then when you said like it could be like preparing you for like your exit, in my head I was like, oh my God, Sydney, no, like don't leave us, don't leave me. Like, man, oh my gosh. But whew, like I said, this conversation is
Yeah, I
definitely
mean,
going to be like on my heart because it's a lot. It's a lot.
yeah, welcome to a little glimpse and slice of my life. And also my life is just a reflection of life itself. and the lessons that we all will learn at some point in a different kind of experience. But at the end, this is why we're so connected, because yeah, I grieved certain things this year that you didn't grieve, but you understand very well what I experienced in some way, right? You understand what grieving is. But so fundamentally, like at the root of everything, all the lessons are the same, the experiences are different, and the amount of what we feel is going to be different because we all have different thresholds of emotion. Some feel really deeply, some feel more superficially, so we have also different measurements for how we feel and how much we give into feeling.
Yeah. Um, Quickly to your point, when you said that, the average person can feel super validated when they may have a certain materialistic thing, or they may know someone who, is deemed to be like important and powerful and whatever. I know from within myself, it is not easy living in a city like Los Angeles, and it can be very, showy. And what kind of car do you drive? Who do you know? What are you wearing? And so this is a gentle reminder to myself. I play the game all the time though with myself of, okay, pretend you don't know that person. Pretend you don't drive what you drive. Would that change you? How do you feel within yourself? And that sometimes it's like, oh no, I know how it feels not driving what I drive, or I know not having access to that particular person. And it just feels, I feel a little smaller. And so this is like just a good reminder of myself, like nothing that I have on or even how I look should validate my importance and just my being. It's like you're a soul, and vibrate off of that. Have your confidence off of that. So, thank you for bringing that to light.
Yeah, I want to add something to that because that's also multi-layered, but very quickly, I people are going to relate to these things differently because it depends on your experiences in life. So for instance, like I've heard people who have lost a lot of things and then they've committed suicide, right? And then you have someone that has a lot of resilience, that when they experience loss, because it's not their first time experiencing loss in so many ways, that they tend to be more resilient and they don't, kill, unaliven themselves, right? Um, so there's that. The other thing with all these accolades and these things that make us feel more powerful, I mean, the thing that I was gripping with that was the amount of colonization and imperialistic conditioning that I had in my mind still. Because somehow I equated my self-actualization to how much abundance I was able to maximize alongside with who I was as a person, right? And what I built and the resilience and the stories and the triumphs and the challenges that I faced, the enormous amount of obstacles that I overcome, and then to reach on a material world, reach this level of abundance that no one has ever had in my family. So of course something was happening energetically in my body where I was like I can feel the cells of my body sort of like upgrading. It was very interesting, and it was like kind of like also grieving my old self and also coming into this new person and also feeling really like I can just feel my ancestors in so many ways. Um and then coming to face losing a portion of that and losing other aspects of myself that built this identity and image of like this achievement was kind of like taking a few steps back. It felt like it felt like I went, 20 steps forward and then I went 20 steps back. And I don't have all the answers just yet because I'm still on the side of like, okay, the reset button has already been reset. It's reset a long time ago, like maybe 2 years ago to date. And I'm still feeling the remnants in some ways, but then I'm on the side of like the acceptance and the gratitude. I'm kind of really reaching the gratitude now, but the acceptance of it. And also the rebuilding of there was a reason all this happened, right? There was a reason. You have to understand, like, there's always reasons for all the things that are happening. One is the lesson of like your ultimate demise and your ultimate exit out of this life. That's the lesson of surrender, letting go, and accepting and gratitude. The other is when we go, if you believe in reincarnation, you enter a new life. You rebuild a new identity, you know? And so how great it is to be able to reset and say, you know what? Like I didn't really like a lot of things that I was doing and the energy wasn't fully right and I wasn't with the right person and all this stuff. And I get to now recreate something new. But having the resilience to do so is something that you can't give with money. You can only have resilience through a lot of trial and error and challenges and overcoming. You cannot buy and you cannot pay someone to have resilience. And that's why a lot of people that are successful, some of them don't want to give money to their children because they understand the importance of character building to be able to withstand the challenges that one needs to face in life to be able to accept the inevitable um, death, the inevitable deaths that they will have throughout their lives, whether those are with parents, places, people, thing, their own identities. If you live to be very old, you're watching yourself slowly exit, slowly lose your identity and come into that acceptance. It's throughout our entire lives. It's the so cyclical, you know.
Oh my God. Sydney Rye, Sydney Rye, Sydney Rye. Thank you so much for this. I feel like crawling to my bed with the blanket over my head and just do like a deep reflection on everything we spoke about. But I
Wait,
really would.
wait, this wasn't how we were supposed to end. Wait.
I know. But it's like I want to be cognizant of your time. We can definitely do a part two. I feel like this will in itself be a part two because there's just like so much and I want everyone to like be able to digest it, you know, gradually. But thank you so much for this because I already knew it was going to be good just from the vibes I got from you, but this is just even more of like a for me. So, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for hosting this, and you're just so good and you're a delight, and I'm glad that we've worked together, collaborated now, and yeah, I really look forward to what's next. I'm glad that you're doing podcasts
I
now.
know. Oh my God. Wow. Alrighty.